Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to do with the book, because that's exactly what she goes through. Stacey's first summer job is lifeguarding at the community pool, and what it's like to stand in her bedroom listening to music, trying on that nasty bathing suit for the first time and not liking what she looked like in the mirror. And when she goes through heartbreak, listening to the songs in the car as she's driving late at night and getting so angry that she throws the CD out the window, even she's so mad, all of those experiences were based on, my own experience with that. As you described it just now, I'm sure you have your own version of that as well. And I wanted my readers to be able to go through that.
Welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the podcast where sometimes the earth shakes, because, that can happen. Jamie's on the podcast. Maybe we'll explain that in a moment. But Jamie's here, and she is a great author. If you're looking for a book from a Gen X mom's perspective for daughters, you just found your favorite author right here. Jamie's here, and she's got a great book for you and a great story to tell as well. Jamie, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm so glad to be here.
Excellent. It's great to have you on the show. What we're alluding to about the earth shaking, it's only happened for me here in Canada, I think, twice. But it happens, I guess, a little more often for where you guys are, where you live. But we were doing our pre-chat a few weeks ago, a few days ago, and all of a sudden there's this weird rumbling thing. The Zoom was getting glitchy, and then all of a sudden we're like, I think we're having an earthquake. And I'm like, wow. And then we talked just before we record, watching videos after the fact. And you brought up something that happened at the zoo, which I saw as well, and I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
But let's mention that before we jump into all the other stuff. I always get out of the way. That was really amazing.
I grew up in Southern California, so earthquakes are a common thing in my life. I've lived through some pretty big ones, and I'm currently in North Orange County, right on the border of LA County, and that earthquake that happened a few weeks ago was down in San Diego County. So I wasn't scared because it didn't feel very big by the time it got to me, but it was a 5.1, I believe, down there. Yeah. And when after we got off the call, saw the videos from the San Diego Zoo of the elephants, the way that the adult elephants circled to protect the baby elephants during the earthquake, it was so beautiful and just really neat to witness that, they have a natural way of protecting their young. And I just love that so much. But here in my house, not even my stack of books toppled over or anything. Everything was fine. Just the windows rattled a little. And once Zoom was back working, we were all good. So
yeah. Awesome. That's great. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of a segue into what you're writing about, and it's kind of a mother-daughter type thing, and a story of, coming of age back in, it was 1996 as well. So there's some elements of that kind of parental type stuff in the background as we're going to chat today, but
fair enough.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Circling your young, right? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I was definitely inspired to write a book from the time period that I grew up in the 90s. But for at least my experience and a lot of the women that I have spoken to since the book came out, our parents in the 90s weren't so hands-on. We've gone through a season since that period in which parents were kind of helicopter parents and too hands-on. And now I hope that we're finding a common ground somewhere in the middle. But my parents were not too hands-on, and I had way too loose of reins. And I wanted to write a book for teenage girls now, the Gen Zs, to be able to read and understand that those of us who grew up back in the 90s know what they're going through. Even though we didn't have social media and cell phones, we absolutely had major issues with body acceptance problems, and with sexual consent was a big issue then, just like it is now. The Planned Parenthoods back in those days were actually being bombed, and threatened of bombings were happening. Right. There was a big war happening over the abortion issue in the 90s as well. And so by centering my novel in that period, I was able to speak both to the women who are moms now, which I am a Gen X, but also I'm pretty close to the millennial cusp. So some of the older millennials can understand the mom perspective on this. And then speak to them through the music and pop culture and what it was like to be a teenager then, but then also speak to the young kids now in a way that they feel seen and understood of what it's like to be a girl coming of age at that prime time, 17 years old, and the whole world's ahead of you, and yet everything feels like it's crashing down around you at the same time because you're expected to make such huge decisions and you're not sure who the right people to turn to for advice are. So,
Well, all right. So we have authors listening to the show. They're coming here to learn from a fellow author. They're here to pick up some wisdom and knowledge from someone who's further down the path than they are. Maybe they're just starting. And had there been a podcast with a guest talking about writing that you listened to before you started this project, what kind of things would have been helpful to hear from that author who's further down the road than you were when you started your book? What would be helpful to hear right now?
Oh, that's such a great question. I'm not that far beyond a lot of these people because my book just came out in January of 2025, and I was working on it. I started it in the fall of 2022, and I really, it was a dream of mine to be an author for about 20 years before that, but life didn't really make it possible for me to focus on my writing until 2020 and really being able to have time back that, the world was so busy going into 2020. Everything as a mom of two teenage girls was just go, 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 go. And 2020 just stopped everything. And suddenly I had time to figure out what I wanted again. And so I prioritized art, and then I prioritized my writing, and I went back and got my master's degree. And I guess the advice that I would have for anybody who's listening right now who wants to be an author is it's never too late, and definitely don't give up on those dreams. Also, if you're planning to get into writing to be a millionaire, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. That's just the people who are making a lot of money off of books have been at it a lot longer than I have. I can say that. And they've been published a lot more times than I have too. So you'd have to be willing to put your blood, sweat, and tears into this and know that you're doing it because you're accomplishing a goal or you're living that dream, but not because you're expecting to get a ton of money out of it in the end. That said, every single person that I've spoken to who has been moved by my book, from teenagers through moms, boy moms even, who have said that reading my book inspired them to have conversations with their sons because of what they saw the female protagonist go through with boys in the story. Every single one of those conversations just fills me with so much joy that I actually finished this book and got it out there, and that I stayed true to my vision for it as well. So Stick with it. For sure.
I'm on your website, by the way. I love the website. Oh. There's a video trailer for the book as well. Yes. Tell me a little bit about that. I don't see that often.
To. So my oldest daughter is 18 and she's about to go to college in Manhattan this fall. The last 2.5 years of her high school experience has been so transformed by finding a love for film and television. And she puts out biweekly programs and did an amazing anti-drunk driving thing that got actually a congressional award a couple years ago. And the most recent one just came out a few weeks ago. We hope it gets acknowledged as well. And so because I've watched her for 2.5 years make these incredible films, I knew that she and her friends had the capability to do a professional quality trailer. And so I asked my daughter if she wanted first. I gave her the first opportunity. She did not. She wanted to be separate from it because she wanted me to have full creative license with it and not have a clash with her. But she really recommended 2 students to direct it, who she had a lot of respect for. And one of them I've known since we moved here when he was in 2nd grade. Our oldest daughter was in 2nd grade at the same time. So it's just really fun to see this person who was a little boy and is now going to be going away to film school as this director. And then his co-director is a freshman in film school right now. And then the 3 characters that are played in the trailer, one of them who plays the main character, Stacey, is another one who we've known since she was in second grade, and she's an incredibly talented musician. And she was just the perfect Stacey. She happens to be on the swim team, and our local swim team has, red bathing suits, so it worked out perfect. And she is a lifeguard too. So she was totally comfortable being in a bathing suit in the trailer. And then my daughter's best friend played sort of the other female character that Stacey's jealous of. And then the director's younger brother, who's in class with my youngest daughter, played the love interest. So it was really fun to have these kids that I've known since they were in kindergarten through second grade create this film version. And if it gets picked up for anything, if one day the rights get bought, I hope they get acknowledged for how they brought my 359-page book into a 1-minute trailer that just encapsulated so many parts of the story so well. I'm blown away by it.
Okay, so I've asked authors, was it like to hold your book for the first time? I've asked like similar questions like that of my guests in the past, but I haven't been able to do this. What's it like to see your book, like through the lens and the view of someone else who's kind of taking the story and putting it to film? What's it like to see it though? Like that's got to be amazing.
It really, really was. And I saw it like right at the New Year's time, and I was releasing it on New Year's Day when the book was releasing. So it was just this really celebratory time, and I was so blown away. Their skill is amazing. Although it was really funny too, because these are teenagers right now. I had a book of CDs that the main character flips through in the trailer, and they were like, well, what's the relevance behind it? So that's how we listen to music. I had lots of these books in my car, and that's in the story. And so it was to explain some of the nuances. For example, also, they were going to have her listening to music because the main character loves music. But what they needed was big headphones and like a disc player, like a CD disc man. And that none of us had access to that. And they showed up to the shoot with AirPods, and I was like, no, that's not going to work. Like that did not exist. Nothing even remotely close to that existed when I was listening to music in the 90s. So I'm sorry. We had to nix that part of it entirely.
Now you love music.
I do.
Can you tell us, is there any songs in your 1996 playlist that would be like, oh my gosh, takes you back in time to this time when your book is written?
Oh, 100%. So I was a big fan in growing up in Southern California of the pop punk ska scene with No Doubt and Blink-182 and Green Day. They were all coming of age as I was coming of age, and we were going to those shows. You could see No Doubt. I think I'm positive I have the ticket stub still, was the first show that I bought tickets myself and like took a train into downtown LA to see them at the Palladium, and it was only $22 to see No Doubt. It was just, so my playlist that's on Spotify for the book is it's music that I listened to the entire time I wrote the story as well. So it would sort of take me back to that mindset of being a teenager, listening to this in the car in the summer, blaring on K-Rock with the windows open. And so it's got songs like Just a Girl by No Doubt, and it's got a lot of things from Oasis, and which they're coming back this fall. My husband and I actually fell in love during college going to shows like this, and we are still huge music fans. So we see these shows all the time. We saw Blink-182 last summer when they played at SoFi Stadium. So he had as much invested in the music of my book as I did, because he was listening to it and like, yeah, that makes sense. And double checking like when the CD came out, like available at, Tower Records so that you could go pick it up, or because that's all those details are in my book.
Where do we get access to that playlist on Spotify?
There's a link to it on my website. And I have shared it on all my social media as well. And I'd be glad to share it with you. I know you're a music fan too. So be glad to share it for the show notes if anybody wants to check it out.
Excellent. I think it puts us in the mindset of the book too when we're starting to read, to have that kind of in the background, kind of take us there. I love how music transports you.
Yeah.
Your book transports us, but the music along with it transports us back to that time. You can see yourself driving down the street at your first job, first love. All these things happen just as soon as you hear those notes. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, time travel, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to do with the book because that's exactly what she goes through. Stacey's first summer job is lifeguarding at the community pool, and what it's like to like stand in her bedroom listening to music, trying on that nasty bathing suit for the first time and not liking what she looked like in the mirror. And when she goes through heartbreak, listening to the songs in the car as she's driving late at night and getting so angry that she throws the CD out the window, even like she's so mad, you know. Um, all of those experiences were based on, you know, my own experience with that. As you described it just now, I'm sure you have your own version of that
Yeah.
as well. And I wanted my readers to be able to go through that. As somebody who loves music, but also loves visual arts, I had a lot going on around me to really embrace that whole season. So I created a scrapbook that I was flipping through the pages of old magazines and putting inspiration behind what each character looked like, what they wore, what they listened to, what their favorite foods were. I knew every single one of these characters inside and out, who they wanted to look like versus who they actually saw themselves like, because that's what teenage girls especially do. They have these, you know, now we call them vision boards. Back then, you know, they would create collages of, you know, Teen Beat and Cosmo magazine, ripping the pictures apart and then trying to create this perfect vision of what they wanted to be one day.
Yeah.
And so my character does that, and the other girls she works with at the pool do that. And then she falls in love with a skateboarder who, in many ways, is a not so idyllic version of Tony Hawk, kind of, and his because he was a big part of my growing up in the '90s too, and all the kids that wanted to be like him. And it was when the X Games came out, so all of this is in my scrapbook and on my music playing in the background, and I am truly absorbing it all as I wrote this book in every way, and it took me back in time, and I hope whoever reads it feels the same way.
It's amazing. I got to see Tony Hawk in Toronto for the Boom Boom Hawk Jam back in the day, and he was like 3 rows behind us at the beginning of the show,
That is
just
so
sitting in with us. Nobody really realized who he was in the moment. And then the lights came on, spotlight, and he stood up behind us and walked down, jumped on his board, and off he went. And I'm like, "Wow, this is cool." It's like the video came alive right in front of us. He's right there. So it's pretty amazing.
that's so awesome, so
Yeah.
so awesome. I love it.
I like it. Talk about writing this book from the lens of being a mom as
Yeah.
well, knowing that your kids are going to read this and go, wow. Like, I think a lot of kids think of their parents as parents, not as humans, with our own story and the fact that we've lived some of this in the past. And what's been the response from your kids? And were you a little bit nervous about writing stories like this, that your kids are going to see some of this and kind of go, wow, mom wrote a book, but she wrote a book. Like, what's the response?
Yeah, I would say there's two things going on there. One, they saw me for so many years of their lives as a stay-at-home mom who was 100% dedicated to them and our extended family, especially supporting my husband's career. And we had a lot of loved ones go through terminal illness, and I was supportive of them. And they saw me transform into still loving and supporting everyone around me, but putting myself first and my dreams first and accomplishing a goal within a pretty short amount of time. I think they thought maybe, you know, I was saying I was going to go to grad school, but then 15 months later, I was finished all, you know, top of my class in grad school. And I had already started the first 10,000 words of this novel. And then within 6 months, the novel was written, the full first draft. And within another year, it was ready to go to publishing. So I think that they were really encouraged, and they seemed to express to me as well as to others this immense pride in watching their mom put herself first and her goals first while still, you know, supporting our family in every way that I can. And that showed them that they can do the same for themselves, that no matter if they do it when they first graduate college or 20 years down the line, like I did, that they will be able to do that as well. And I think that that really means a lot to me that they got to witness that firsthand. They have people they look up to, like Taylor Swift, who I think is an incredible role model for young girls, but they got to see it in their own house as well. So that was really good. As for the story itself, they do know a lot of what's in the book, but they both have so far refused to read it, which is pretty funny for exactly the reason you spoke of. Because they said, we know it's fiction, but we also know that you're drawing on personal experience to write this fiction. And we do not want to imagine our mom in any of these situations. But what's hilarious is my nephew, my brother's son, is the same age as my girls, and he actually read it, and he really loved reading it because he wanted to see what it was like for me growing up in that time period. Because I think he kind of can see his own parents, but it's not as personal for him, I guess.
All right. How closely then does Absorb mirror your experience growing up then? Like a lot, like is it on a scale 100% you, 10% you? Kind of, where would you kind of place you on that graph?
Probably I'd say the town itself, that the town in the book is based on is like 90% accurate.
Okay.
I was a lifeguard at a community pool in a town out in the boonies of San Bernardino County, and everybody who's read it from that area recognizes exactly what I'm talking about. Wherever like she's driving, they all know which neighborhoods, even though they're all fake names, they're all, they recognize it all. So
Yeah.
the town itself is 90%. The characters, beyond the main character, but all of the characters are probably amalgamations of 3 or 4 different people that I know put together, characteristics of one put together with, physical characteristics of another, personality of a different person. There are 2 characters in the book, though, that I am 100% were accurate. One of them was my dog. Growing up, I had a golden retriever named Murphy Brown after the TV show. And she was the sweetest little Murphy dog. And she was my BFF in high school and slept on my bed. And so Murphy is in the book. So if you're a dog lover and a golden retriever lover in particular, that's an accurate character. And then also, I had the good fortune of a friend of mine in high school and college was in a ska band. Several of my friends were. And he really accomplished his dream of like making it all the way to LA with, his music and everything. And then he chose to give it up and live a quieter life back where we grew up. And sadly, he passed away 2 years ago. And I had already started this character in the book named Martin, the lead singer of a band. Based on him, because I really wanted to honor how inspired I was by him following those dreams way back in our high school days. And it was such a privilege to me to be able to share with him that I had written a character based on him and kept it true to him before he passed away. So Martin and Murphy are both accurate. The main character is probably 40% me. But I gave her a lot of characteristics of other people too. So, yeah.
All right. You mentioned that readers can position themselves in locations based on the book, even though it's been fictionalized. Do readers that know you see themselves in there and go, hey, Jamie, is that part of me in the story? Like, are they putting their hand up going, I think that's me. Did you include me in this? Like, are they getting that kind of response too from people?
I haven't had anybody ask if it's them, which I thought.
Okay.
So my sister-in-law now is somebody I grew up with, and I've known her since she was in first grade. And she and I were lifeguards together. And her book club read my book, and we met 2 weeks ago. And I swore that she was going to ask that question. And she flat out just said to everybody, no, I know I'm not in there. I'm definitely not any of those characters. Like, that's true. You're not. But probably some of her characteristics are amalgamated into some of the other characters as well. But she could correctly identify 2 characters because she worked with me at the pool. The manager of the pool was a high school coach that we had in high school, who was also the manager of the pool where we worked. And so he's pretty close too, although he's a very generalized coach type figure because I didn't want him to have a super strong role in the book. For anybody who is Gen X like me, growing up, I watched Caddyshack a lot, and I was inspired by the humor of what it was like to be, the caddies in the Caddyshack. And the boss was never the main character there. It was always the teenagers just getting into all sorts of trouble. So that was the same thing in our guard shack in my book.
Okay.
The boss.
All right. From Caddyshack to Guard Shack. That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
For the reader, for Absorbed, what's your big hope for them as a reader when they're going to sit down and start reading for the first time? What's your big picture? What do you hope they take away from this book?
I really hope that anyone who is younger in more of a coming of age stage of life their takeaway will be that they should find their true voice in their life, that they should learn to speak for themselves and really vocalize their own dreams and goals and seek those. That's the biggest transformation for my young character, is that she is trying to be something for everybody else instead of for herself. And by the end, she really figures out what she wants and how to speak up for herself and go after it. And then for the older people, the moms, parents, even grandparents who read it, I hope that they will see that teenagers are expected to make mistakes. They're not expected to be perfect. And they deserve a whole lot of grace because they're trying as hard as they can to do the best that they can. And their mistakes come from really a lack of experience. And so that is my greatest takeaway for parents. And it was really important for me. There's a pivotal moment in the book in which the main character and her mom are finally seeing eye to eye, and the main character is being really honest with her mom about the mistakes that she's made. And the mom is just saying right back to her, I don't expect you to make every right choice. I just hope that you'll involve me so I can help you out of the messes that you get into instead of trying to fix it all on your own. And it was such a joy to be able to write in a parent who responds the way that a parent, I hope, will respond when their kids come to them, because every kid is going to make mistakes for sure.
Right. You think about it, like I'm a dad of empty nest kids. My kids are out of the house, and the whole journey of them trying to find themselves, to find their identity, to find their path, their education, relationships, like they got like 15, 16 years of fun and lighthearted, just being a kid and enjoying life. And then all of a sudden the switch happens. Where are you going to school? Who are you seeing? How are you picture yourself? And then the media back in 96, like you said, ripped out magazine pictures posted on the wall, compared to social media today, the power of influence on our kids, on all the different media outlets and everything. And just the fact that I remember that you could shut that off when you left school. It didn't follow you home.
Right.
We didn't have phones in our rooms, right? We weren't connected all the time. So you could have some downtime. Kids today don't have downtime. They're surrounded 365, right? So from a parent's point of view, how do you think this book is going to help us to maybe look at our relationship with our kids today? Kind of what are some key points that might come out of reading the book that we could use as a parent?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I really like that you point out that kids today can't really turn it off. That is a struggle I see with my own two daughters, because that is a big part of Stacey's story, is being able to get away and reflect on things a little bit more than probably teenagers today typically get. I would say for the parents, the biggest thing I have is to stay curious about your kids. Don't start turning a blind eye or just ignoring those symptoms of children really getting lost inside their own head and out in the world and not knowing where to turn. Stay curious, stay involved, ask those questions, not because you are certain you know the answer, but because you want to hear what their answer actually is. For example, My daughter, who's graduating now, back in her sophomore year, as most teenagers go through a phase of this, she started, going to some parties and had friends that were partying. And at one point, some kids ended up at our house and were highly intoxicated. Not our daughter, but the other kids were, and vomiting on our couch and all the nasty things. And of course, we could have lost our minds on her and said, "What is going on?" But
Yeah.
asking the question of like, how did it get to this point where these kids were this sick, and how did you get
Yeah.
them safely to our house, and what made you decide that that was the right choice? And as a result, I learned that my daughter was so desperate to protect her friends,
Hmm.
who she knew would have otherwise maybe gotten in cars and driven, and she did not want that to happen. And I was proud of her for being honest with us and for making those choices. And even though the kids didn't want to, we live in a small town. She knew their parents well enough to reach out to their parents and say, listen, they need to be picked up, and got them safely home. And I'm so proud of her for that. And I just think that that attitude of curiosity, instead of jumping to conclusions or automatically trying to control teenagers, is the best approach, because you can't control them. Every human has free will, and every human has these desires and impulses and curiosities that they're going to pursue whether we like it or not. And the question is whether they're going to involve you in that or not. If you want them to be secretive, your relationship probably is going to struggle a lot to help them through those problems. Whereas if you want them to be open with you, you need to stay curious and less judgmental about the choices that they're going to make.
Right. And then the whole idea, too, that in 1996, Stacey's dealing with what she sees in the mirror compared to 2025, what you see, your mirror has basically been replaced by your phone.
Yeah.
And now it's selfies and it's all that and it's in social media and everything. So now you're battling what you would see in the mirror privately. You're battling in public in front of an audience of people then also piling on and telling you maybe things that aren't helpful or hurtful that make it even worse than
Right.
standing there in front of the mirror by yourself, right?
Oh, it's
So
so
there's this
hard.
big gap, right?
There is. And the for girls now, also what they share on social media is so often doctored in so many ways that they feel like they can't have any visible flaws at all. And so everything is photoshopped, and real versus what is reality on social media is there's a huge gap there alone in what a teenager today feels like their life is actually like, and what they position it as for the world to see on social media. It encourages them to hide away their real life and position everything online as being perfect. It's really unreasonable expectations. There's way too high of unreasonable expectations. And yet, I have also seen it is possible for them to put that phone aside and really live in this world and laugh and connect with people. And I think the more that we can show them and encourage them that there's a world beyond what social media is positioning for them, the more we can help them as well. And so staying connected on a face-to-face level with our kids, not through texting, not through even phone calls, but just really spending time with them is the first step towards that, I think.
Yeah. And then there's, I guess, another side of it, too, where girls that are struggling or kids that are struggling, they do have an outlet where they're not alone in their room with the mirror, like Stacey in 1996. So there's an advantage to that in the sense that they have a world with them all the time. But not to negate what Stacey's character is dealing with in 1996. At that level, in 1996, that was all you knew. That's all you had. So it wasn't easier, Stacey, in that character back then, just because it was 1996. It was just as hard. And I think for kids today that would read this, students that would read this book, to realize that it was just as hard back then with all the limitations of 1996. It was hard. It wasn't easier, right? So there's a balance there too, both ways.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And we could do that with any generation. I mean, the
Yeah,
kids that were in the 50s, first getting exposed to rock and roll and hiding that from their
right.
parents.
Yeah,
And every generation is exposed to drugs and alcohol that they're trying to experiment with, and the attraction to other people that they experiment sexually with. And
yeah.
it's a common factor no matter what the generation is. And our kids will be parents wondering how they could have ever survived in 2050, and so
Right.
it'll be curious to see where we go from here. But I think the same struggles for teenagers they are cyclical. Every teenager is going to go through the same things no matter what. In terms
Right. Age wise, what's the age range for the book? Who's the best reader for this?
It's definitely begins with older young adult,
Okay.
older YA. It's more of a like new adult or older YA, and
Okay.
then but it is a female coming of age story that I would definitely just put in a women's fiction category
Okay.
for a lot of us that like to read those types of stories. It takes you right back.
What are you most proud about for Absorbed?
Oh, I think I'm most proud that the story that I originally envisioned really came to fruition through the full story stayed very true, and that I was able to incorporate in elements that I never at first imagined. So, for example, as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation today, back in 2020, I started prioritizing myself, and one of the things that I did was I took up watercolor and painting, and watercolor became a very transformative, meditative, healing practice in my life. And for that reason, I never originally envisioned this book incorporating watercolor, but when I went back to my rounds of revisions, I realized that Stacey needed another aspect to her story, and so she got a mentor character who is an art teacher, and she incorporates watercolor as well, and it is a transformative part of her story as well. And she finds what she wants in life through art as well. And so that made me really proud. And because of that experience with art, I also got the privilege to design my own cover, and
Oh,
I really am proud of that as well because it's gotten a lot of great feedback. It's very eye catching and has so many elements of the story represented beautifully on the cover. So I'm really proud of that for sure.
it is gorgeous. That was my next question. Tell me about your cover and the fact that you were able to do that. That's amazing. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I find that when I'm walking the dogs, I get the most inspiration for some reason. So one day, yeah, I was walking the dogs and I had this just vision in my head of what I wanted it to look like. And I came back and I started playing in Canva and putting it together. And then I was in an art show locally, like an art festival. And I printed out my cover idea and I just set it on the table and said, ask me about this. And the number of people that stopped and wanted to know about it and talk to me about it just really spoke to me. Like, this cover is going to work because everybody's curious about what this is. And when I actually went through the process of getting the book published, I did work with a cover designer, and she's a very talented woman. And she gave me 10 concepts. And I said, these are all great concepts, but I still like mine better. And so she actually took my art and incorporated it into the cover for all the different formats and really enhanced it and beautified it. But it's still my original artwork for sure. So I'm very proud of that.
Amazing. Take us to the website, Jamie. I want to make sure we send people there so they can see all the amazing stuff we're talking about. It's great. Watch the video as well. Watch the trailer. It's awesome. Take us there. And then I kind of want to wrap up with a question here to kind of end off the conversation. I'm so glad to have you here. Again, take us to the website and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so my website is jaimetowzen.com. Jaime spelled like Jaime, JaimeTowzen. And on my website, you'll find everything about the book that you might be curious about. As we mentioned, the Spotify playlist, the trailer. a little bit about me and my background, and you'll find a lot of my artwork is there. I have a store on my website that I sell note cards and prints and things of my art. And I also share some of my healthy tips for how to get through those stressful days like I was experiencing when we were losing loved ones. And I really needed to find a way to decompress. And my watercolor experience was personally just the best way to deal with my anxiety and stress. And so I hope that anybody who checks out my website can learn from some of that and find their own path out of those kinds of situations.
It's amazing. I love how you paint with words. It's really good. Well done. For you, the name of the show, Living the Next Chapter, I like to ask my guests how you, as an author, you're published, you're out there, you're celebrating the launch of the book. It's amazing. But I got to ask, again, it's the name of the show, how are you living your next chapter?
Well, I'm currently very busy with the book stuff and also my daughter graduating and starting college this fall. But one of the things that I'm going through right now is selling my mom's house. And that's because she sadly was robbed of all of her retirement money from some romance scammers. So my next chapter is going to be another book that is going to be sort of mysterious in figuring out who is the real thief in a person who was robbed in a similar circumstance. And I'm developing those characters now, and I'm developing all of the scenarios that get somebody to the place where they are so vulnerable to that kind of a crime, as well as the scenarios that lead a person to make the decisions to steal from someone like that, and in such a really heart-wrenching way because they're so vulnerable. So that's going to be probably a couple years down the road before that'll be available for readers. But that is my next chapter that I'm working on right now, is trying to really flesh that out, and kind of like going back to the 90s and working through what it was like to be a teenager. This was in some ways a healing process for me, and in trying to work through how my mom found herself in this situation, and trying to find healing for our relationship through that as well, because I'm so sad that she's had to go through all of that loss. So,
well, thank you for being part of the podcast. For those listening, as the earth shakes and things start to fall apart, surround your family. Mm-hmm. Keep them safe, right? As we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
Be that circle that your family needs as we wrestle through our coming of age, trying to find our identity in this world. And then also, I love that not only are you talking about from a parent's perspective to their children, but from a child to a parent. You're also doing that for your mom as well. So I really love where you're heading with this. And I just love the concept for Absorbed. And again, celebrating you in the future. Come back and tell us about new projects so we can celebrate with you, okay?
Oh, that would be such an honor, Dave. I really enjoy talking to you about books and music, and I would be thrilled to come back, for sure.
Excellent. And we always include elephants because you never know, right? We got to include them in the podcast as well.
Sounds good.
Awesome, Jamie. Thank you so much for doing this. Everyone, all the information for Jamie in the show notes. Go there, grab a copy of the book. Make sure that you leave a detailed review. Tell everybody why you love this book so much, so that someone else who's seeing this book for the first time will know exactly why you love it and what's in it for them as well as a reader. So that's our job as readers. The authors give us the words in a book. We give our words back to the authors as a review. That's kind of how it works. So please do that for Jamie, and go grab a copy of Absorbed. Buy one for you and buy one for someone that you love as well. Jamie, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.